Hey guys, so the shop's a disaster. We used like all of the tools, but in doing so, I've got the manifolds mocked up for the Mikunis on the 650 swap. I think they turned out great, and in this video you're going to see what I did to make those and the combination here that I'm using. So I hope you enjoy the video. Okay guys, so with any kind of project like this, there's going to be kind of an order of operations that you have to do in order to fit things where they need to go or where they can essentially just fit. So one thing I need to work on is the ignition switch. It's probably one of the last things I actually need to fabricate to mount up functionally, like for electronics and whatnot. And what I want to do is utilize, use the right hand. So I'm going to probably put it under the tank. I've done this before. And the ignition switch I have, I'll show you at some other point. But I need to put the ignition switch hopefully about right here. Now, I can't go ahead and just do that because I actually need to get my carburetors mocked up. And they're not exactly bolt-on. So before I do the ignition switch, I have to go ahead and I have to do the carburetors. So I have some factory manifolds here. I'm not going to use them because these don't fit the Mikunis that I have for it, but I might cut them up. So I'm going to jump over here. I'm going to flip the mic, flip the camera. So what we have, the combo that I'm using is a Mikuni VM34, and then I have, I like to use foam filters. So these are UNI PK92s. You get them in a 2-pack. But the PK92s I really like, so they fit the carb really nice. And then you do some Mikuni Spigot mounts, and that can mount on the end here. Now you can actually buy this entire kit from like Murray's Carburetors or even Dime City Cycles, but me, because I'm a little bit stubborn, I like absolutely nothing against those guys. I like them both. I just want to try to figure out how to do it on my own and maybe set up my own unique combination for this bike. So what I'm going to do is probably utilize and cut up some of the original intake manifolds that I have between either the 650 or the 500. And whether I do that and cut the flange off and weld on some aluminum tube to fit, to the spigot mount, I don't know, or if I want to make the whole thing out of steel. That's what I have to figure out. So I'm going to go raid the storage bin I have full of raw materials and see kind of what I have to work with. I might make it out of steel since I'm I have a lot of it. I have some tube that's like the perfect diameter, but I also would like to utilize these aluminum manifolds because they have the tap here where you can balance your carburetors, which is very important. So since that's already made in, that would save me some time possibly. Just things you have to consider. But going over to the bike, get an idea of where this is gonna lie. I'm gonna do something about all these hoses and stuff too. All right. So the carbs are gonna sit where you would expect the carbs to sit, but I just need to make sure what kind of room I have there with the choke lever to actuate and whatnot. So it's important that I get the carbs mounted up first. So ongoing, I'm gonna go ahead and try to figure out the carb mounting, and then we'll move to the ignition switch. But you got to make a list, order of operations. Things you got to get done before you can get the next thing done. It's all just a big puzzle. Alright, so I'm working on the intake manifolds for the bike finally. And as you saw, I took the stock manifolds, I've chopped them down, and then on the belt sander here, I've just gave it a flat finish, or a flat surface. Now we're going to do a whole bunch of die grinding and whatnot and fabrication on these to try to port them and get them to just kind of flow into the head as nicely as possible, since it's going to be an entirely different alignment. But obviously they bolt into the factory location. And then I have the aluminum Schedule 40 here, and we'll build off of that. And we'll try to blend it, and we'll try to increase the radiuses on any bends as much as possible. but we'll do filler, epoxy, aluminum, file it. It'll be a long process, but I'm just gonna kind of geek out on these things because I think it'll be fun. We'll probably do a light, probably do like some port matching and blending on the head inlet too. So yeah, pretty excited about that part. But for now, working on these, gonna start kind of mocking things up, holding the carburetors up to it, and figure out what we need to do. Alright, so I've had a little change of plans here. Now, looking at these ports, I wanted to have a nice gradual transition in there and eliminate any tight radiuses. And I wanted to use these flanges to have the machine surface with the screw to pull vacuum from and synchronize the carbs once I get it all together. But in having these mounted in the correct spot, it just seems like there's too tight of a bend because it's trying to work around the chassis that this thing used to be in. So I found that if I flip them left to right and then flip them upside down with the port on the bottom, I have like a really nice gradual transition here, and that'll be much easier to blend. And what this transition will allow me to do is do less work to the aluminum pipe to get more of a straight shot out of here. And I'm going to have the same length intake manifolds left to right, that way they're balanced and not like trying to produce more torque on one side or horsepower on the other. But I think this is going to be the better option, and it's like, it won't be so hard to just build up a section with aluminum and then take it to the belt sander and just kind of give it a flat surface to seat, and then create your own port. So I'm just going to end up going this route. I think it'll be best. So here's a cool tip for you guys. Let's say you're in my situation, find yourself having to like hand file something on the bench, and noisy. This thing just sings. It's vibrating in there at like a resonance to make noise. So you just take something, a pair of vice grips or whatever, clamp it on. This absorbs the vibration. Drastically reduces the noise. I use this all the time, especially like cutting sheet metal and stuff. Just makes it a lot more tolerable. Yeah. Little hot take. Alright, so I'm not really sure what happened here, but the audio just seemed to go all to hell and just turned out garbage. So anyway, getting ready to set up here and actually start welding these aluminum pipe sections onto the manifold flanges. And here you can see I've marked the pipe at 90 degrees on all sides. And then if you see there's a little mark there on the flange that's on the high side, that's like at a casting mark that I used as a reference point. So I used that to determine how far I was clocking the manifold or the pipe there. Now you can see that's cut at an angle, it's 15 degrees, and I did that because the flange itself was actually a little bit ovaled and it matched up well at 15. So if I clocked it at 90 degrees, as you see here, it actually provided the best, like a straight shot straight into the head, and it'll require minimal blending and increases the radius on all the bends there, and it's going to fit the best between up, down, left, and right. So that's what I ended up going with, and I think it'll work out great in the end, so it'll make it a lot easier. Alright, so the intake manifolds are mocked up. I actually have carbs on this thing. I think this looks awesome. Check it out. Now these are Mikuni VM34s, and I prefer to run with a UNI filter as you saw. So these are not going to be the filters I use. These are an older version with the chrome on the back. Those can vibrate off. I had some on my XS650 that fell off, but I'll have the actual full foam versions. Yeah, this side is the crucial one. You can see the clearance here between the shock reservoir. That is what we're building it around. Originally, when I started doing this bike, if you go back to like episode 1 or 2 or whatever, I had the 500 engine in it, and the reason the shock is spaced out this far is actually because I was using a 500 engine with the stock manifold, with the stock carbs, with this air filter, and it was designed to clear that. So I'm lucky I got away with being able to have such a decent runner length here. I think it's gonna be great. I'm excited. Throttle cable routing won't be an issue. Fuel line routing should be pretty straightforward. So yeah. I do have an idea. Speaking of fuel line routing, I do have an idea for what I'm going to do for that. I have to do a bit more digging and perfect the combination I have in my head, but yeah, getting it figured out one piece at a time. So I'm going to check that one off the list.